Year later, Res by United Game Artists. And this is just, I guess, this kind of great spiritual successor to Space Harrier, where, you're on a set path and you're just moving forward. The graphics are coming towards you, and you interact in 2D to shoot all of the enemies coming towards you. But the graphic fidelity and the realization, the psychedelic nature of it, again, it had this really cool, great eco theme. The music built up as you played the game. It was layered in a really interesting way. It was just an absolute kind of sensory overload and tour de force. And they redid it time and time again, updating it with each new kind of platform. And I think the latest one is on PSVR 2. Amazing experience in VR, yeah? And just like, a lot of game developers will have this on their list as a really, really perfectly realized experience. Then, World of Warcraft. We're going to do a specific talk on World of Warcraft, but it's a massive, massive game. In terms of its community building, comes to the kind of tying things with games not tying, but similar things with the community that the Jagex talk the other week was talking about. World of Warcraft has to make the list. And then one that maybe is a surprise. We have Mario Kart for kind of fun arcade racing. In terms of that kind of aspirational kind of movie, adrenaline, high adrenaline action. I always loved Burnout. I thought Burnout 3, a great friend of mine was one of the designers of Burnout Paradise, which is really, really good. So he'll really, not be happy. But for me, Burnout 3 was the perfect realization of everything they were trying to do. And you could see you driving through the streets of New York, underneath all the kind of overpasses. It felt like being in, there's that great movie, The French Connection, isn't there? Where it has all of that kind of drive. It felt just like that. And it was an amazing experience. And it shows you can make amazing things on a relatively smaller scale. Then, same year, I think it's the best Creative Assembly Total War game. Again, one of the games that you'll play all night long. 2 games in one. You've got that kind of strategic kind of empire building, real time, it's turn-based actually, isn't it? But turn-based strategy, building your empire out from Rome across all of Europe. And then the great thing was that when you come into conflict with one of your enemies, it would go into what you see on the right there with really, really good three-dimensional recreation of big battles. Yeah? And it was a massively popular at the time. One of Sega's biggest non kind of character IP franchises, and and the franchise is still going strong, isn't it? And then I've cheated because I said I wouldn't come back to ones, but and we talked about Rebirth. Resident Evil 4 was the greatest rebirth, I think, of any franchise, or one of the top 10. Again, when it came out, it was so radically different from the isometric kind of top-down previous versions. Camera was 3D world, camera, slung on the shoulder of the protagonist that you can see there. And, but it worked, yeah. A lot of games when they do something so radical don't kind of keep their kind of initial magic, do they? But it had all of Resident Evil's kind of gameplay and kind of the magic of it, but felt radically different. New kind of setting in this kind of swamp. And it just very, very, very brilliantly mechanically tuned, yeah. The mechanics you had and the implementation you had of your weapons was so well tuned against the NPC's movement speed and their abilities. And the number of times you would fire off a desperate shotgun shell as the masked enemy with the chainsaw was about to bring it down on your head, but you just get the timing right. It was just so well engineered, and maybe There'll be another one on the list later. Then God of War, like, you know, Clash of Titans in the 80s. Years later, somebody grows up and makes a film, a game, influenced by some of those films in theme and setting. And you could have chosen God of War Ragnarok, you could have chosen God of War 3. I just chose the first one because I thought at the time it had a real lot of impact. And I remember, as a member, you know, being at Sony, you'd see the games early. Studios would come together and you bring your game, they bring their games, and you'd have a look at them, and you'd see what you liked in their game, and you get some great discussions going and everything. And sometimes again you go back and you go, oh, their game's better than our game. Do you know what I mean? Secretly, you close the hotel door and you go to your artist. Oh, I thought that looked really good. Oh, what did you think? You know. And I remember having exactly that conversation when we first saw the early kind of builds of God of War, and David Jaffe there, who was the game director of the first God of War. You know, he'd get up and he'd enthusiastically show you, all the gameplay and the graphics and what was the world him and his team had created. And even before it released, we were like, this is gonna be great, and it was, and it sold gangbusters, and it launched the entire franchise, didn't it? And now, up to the point now they're just starting to show you the first images of the film, yeah. But the play was fantastic, and I kind of like, somehow there's something in the earlier ones, slightly more kind of arcade nature of the early ones, that just personally is more to my taste. And then very, very different experience, Lego Star Wars, and I chose the first one. I think it was one of the best co-op, two players together, same TV, same console, sitting in the room. I play it with my kids, and my kids like the kind of Star Wars. They love Lego, and it was just an incredibly optimistic and positive and fun experience. And I thought that the Lego Star Wars, which was like the first three prequel movies, wasn't it? I thought it was better than the films. Yeah, somehow the story was much fun and better when it was like reduced down into little mumbling Lego figures smashing each other into little blocks, and it was just an incredibly winning formula, and really brought people together, because parents and anyone's always looking for things they can do with their friends or their kids, or that to have those fun shared experiences. So I really think it's like one of the top 20 multiplayer games, of its type. It was amazing. And I thought this one was probably better than the next following Star Wars ones. And then, and if we go back, it was in the lists, wasn't it? It was in the lists of top selling, and also, but it's in this list for kind of cultural impact, like Wii Sports and the Wii and Wii Fit. But I've chosen Wii Sports, yeah. I think it sold something like 80 million units. I think that's right. And, it had the 5 sports, didn't it? And again, it had the motion controller. Yeah, it did, 80 million. Had the motion controller, so anybody could play it. And so it just massively widened the gaming audience. And whole families would get together, and grandparents would play it with their grandchildren, wouldn't they? And everyone would have a go. And the great thing about it was that a 5-year-old would maybe have never played golf in reality, yeah. And so mother or granddad would step up and go, oh, I've played loads of golf, let me show you how it's done, yeah. And they would be playing it properly, yeah, with the Wii remote, as and they'd be going, or with the tennis racket, yeah, they'd be going, you'd watch them, wouldn't you? Throw it up, bang, try and serve properly, yeah. And they'd always lose because the little kid would be going, and just they weren't hindered by how you actually played it with a golf club or a tennis racket. They just knew what little flick to make with the controller, which wasn't ever as accurate as everyone thought. And it would just be endlessly fun, wouldn't it? Endlessly fun to see those people going as a 5-year-old beat them, you know, at whatever sport they were doing, yeah. And like, interestingly, I was at Sony at the time, and Sony had made its own motion gaming play with kind of iToy Play and iToy Play 2, and those had sold really, really, really well. But Sony at the same time was doing like things like God of War and, you know, and appealing to kind of more core gamers as well. And like, I think Sony always felt that Nintendo had seen some of that stuff and built a whole platform around a thing they were doing and done it maybe better with the hardware, and stolen kind of a market from them. Yeah, so there was a lot of bad feeling from Sony, I think, or some of the people I knew at Sony at this point. And a very interesting time. And then 59, Akami, which I think for us starting out making new games, it had this whole kind of like paint the world and kind of like this whole kind of art as a source of inspiration for their graphical styling, and you play this kind of mystical kind of wolf, and it was just one of the earliest games of like real pure kind of beauty and kind of poetry that then really, you know, so many games followed in that kind of space, didn't it? And again, it was a really great game that we were really proud to launch on the PlayStation 2. And I just, like, if you think, like, all of these things, yeah, they're all happening in a world before the iPhone, yeah? So you can see the kind of pace of change. And, like, you know, the same year the iPhone 1, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, yeah? And I shouldn't have used the remastered image, but you know the image I'm talking about, yeah? And I put this on because, you know, Call of Duty doesn't often make the list of the very best games. But in Modern Warfare, there's a level called All Gillied Up, which I think we speak about in great depth in one of the narrative modules. I think it's still probably the best single-player level, orchestrated single-player level ever created. You start in your ghillie suit, stealthing across the kind of fields outside Chernobyl in Russia. You're going to assassinate someone. The assassination goes wrong, and the whole scale and orchestration of the level totally changes. And if you've never played that, I won't give it all away. It was just, again, another one of those moments where, you know, people in teams I was working with would just go, why can't we do that? You know, do you know what I mean? Wish we'd done that. And yeah, it was, the characterization was brilliant, the realization was brilliant, and the kind of orchestration of the level was absolutely excellent.